It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays. And this is the first Wellness Wednesdays video inspired by people who have taken advantage of the Leanna Cares service. Link to the sign up form in the description box of this video if you want one-on-one chats about your own personal wellness, what goals you want to do in your life. An overall theme has been socialization in one way or another. How do I navigate social situations effectively? It's been amazing how overwhelming a portion of the people who have signed up for the service want this to be. And so I thought, make a video, because then, we have this, it's nice because when people do the one-on-ones, they reference the Wellness Wednesday videos as a point of common language. It's really, really awesome. And, I'm getting to work with some really amazing, inspiring people this way. But yeah, social navigation. And Wellness Wednesday is partially supplemented by your Patreon dollars. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. You are doing good work for people because I would not be able to offer the service so cheap without that supplement. So, social situations. This is a point of anxiety for a lot of people. I used to have really bad social anxiety myself. Then I stopped giving a fuck. That's only partially joking. There is this real pressure the world puts on people to be responsible for the reactions people have to you. That is only partially true. There are some things that will predictably and understandably get a bad reaction. There are other things that people are interpreting through their own baggage, and there's nothing you can do about that other than, get better at de-escalating conflicts. But if you are uncomfortable in social situations, if social situations give you a ton of anxiety, two major tips that I'm giving people. One is, don't just pay attention to the person speaking during conversations. Look around the room, the chat, whatever, and watch the people who are responding to the person speaking. You can learn a lot that way. The other thing is, if you don't know what to say in a conversation, ask questions. Studies have shown that people think people who ask more questions are more intelligent and more interesting, even though you volunteered absolutely nothing about yourself. You can start with, that's really interesting. I hadn't heard that perspective before. Why do you think that? Something like that. Drawing people out creates a sense of closeness. Now that's casual conversation. And one of the initially strangest things I ever encountered in PTSD therapy, and one of the things that admittedly made me feel the most pathetic, it was something of a low point for me, but it was ultimately really, really good advice, was the therapist told me to go out and practice having casual conversations with people, conversations that went nowhere. They were just pleasant exchanges with total strangers where nothing was on the line. And a lot of you are probably thinking, people are going to think I'm creepy. That's how I felt too. Because, you're a nerd. You've been shamed for your nerdiness, for your uniqueness your whole life. You're taking on too much burden for other people's responses to you. This is how we feel. But I did it. And it was miserable at first. It felt wrong and awkward and sad. And I kept going, oh man, I am so fucked up that I have to practice talking to people. What the fuck? It wasn't practicing talking to people. It was practicing taking the pressure off myself. It was practicing not priming myself for rejection in every social interaction. Not every social interaction is meaningful. Some of them are just funky things that happen and you go on your life and they never matter again, other than a funny story, you know? And obviously there are better and less good places to try to talk to people. I find for whatever reason in Toronto, and this is not true in like New York or LA or Chicago or American cities, people talk to each other in elevators all the time. But when you try to talk to somebody in an elevator in Toronto, they're like, get away from me, you creepy stalker. People in Toronto are not friendly with strangers. But other places like, you know, coffee shop lines or things that are sort of less enclosed space, they cannot run away, you get a better response. Those are little things that you learn by doing. You know, I'm laughing at the fact that people, and it happened whenever I came back from a business trip to like Los Angeles or something like that. I'd come back with a very different socialization because in LA, everybody talks to strangers, right? In Toronto, not so much. And so I had this like re-entry phase whenever I came back to grouchy downtown Toronto after being in LA. I was like, hey, great weather we're having. How about that Raptors game last night? I was like, I don't know. But I'm laughing about it instead of going, oh my God, I did something wrong. An adverse reaction is not necessarily that you did something wrong. Be open to the fact that you may have done something wrong. But if you did something wrong, it doesn't make you a bad person. One thing I find about people who have extreme social anxiety is they have very, very judgy social circles. You know, there's a lot of backstabbing. There's a lot of power tripping in those social circles. And that really impacts, really negatively affects their view of how people in general talk to each other. And so one of the other things I recommend is to have opportunities to socialize with people that are not, there is no overlap. It is two complete circles. It is not a Venn diagram, right? There is no overlap. So, you know, I do the music stuff, right? Those people don't necessarily play Far Cry 6, you know, or play video games at all the way I do. And that's cool because the pressure and the impact of making a mistake becomes so much more profound if all your eggs are in one social basket. And that, I think that's part of the reason that people get so afraid of cancel culture these days, because their entire identity is tied up in their hobby. And so if something does go sideways, perhaps to no fault of your own, it's completely earth-shattering. You know, if you have a fairly small, concentrated social circle, or you have a large, concentrated social circle, it's even worse. You know, if every person you know is through, say, this one particular anime convention, and something happens with that anime convention, that's earth-shattering, right? Whereas if, you know, one group of your social circle is there, but another group of your social circle is through another interest, you know, Cthulhu aficionados maybe, just because he's right there. You know, another thing is through music, another thing is through something else. Well, then you only lose one portion of the people you interact with, which stings, but isn't completely gutting the way losing everything because all your eggs are in one basket that way. And that, I mean, that was something I made the mistake of when I was doing fundraising. I brought my worlds together, right? I brought like musicians I knew and family members and you know, obviously fandom, because I really, really believed in the epilepsy awareness and like supports fundraising I was doing. I put the money into helping people, you know, day-to-day lives, not research, because the day-to-day life stuff tends to be more underfunded. I like giving to charitable causes that don't that money goes further. You know, a 5-figure donation is like, whoa, as opposed to, hey, thanks, we'll throw that on the pile with, you know, the other 300 we got this week. The when that went south because of a bunch of reasons, it was soul destroying, because all these different elements of my life got infected by the same toxicity. And so it just felt like it was coming from everywhere. And that was a real lesson learned, that it's okay to compartmentalize your life to a degree. You can have an inner circle that is involved in a lot of things, but those are people you really got to know well and trust. And there are, I mean, the nice thing about my life falling apart through that was that there are some people who either stayed with me through it or came back relatively quickly. And, you know, those are people who went through some pretty epic shit themselves, like dramatic, like actual physical safety, not assured moments themselves. And there was some rough moments. There was some real tough conversations, but we stayed friends through it. Those are people that have shown through adversity that they are trustworthy. That isn't a surface friendship anymore. That's real. Those are people you can reasonably expect to have your back in future as they are able. Everybody's different. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. There is not, 100% reliability from any human being. But, these are people who have had your back in the past, so they're likely to have your back in the future, or at least more likely than somebody who hasn't been tested that way. And that's the nice thing about having those really bad, oh my God, everybody turned against me things, is that not everybody does. And the 2 or 3 people that didn't, those people who stay with you, they're your real friends. And it's gotten to the point with me where if hundreds of people want to yell at me over something and hate my guts, but I meet somebody really solid that I can actually build a real, an ongoing friendship, relationship with going forward, that's worth it to me. That's a positive. That one person that you meet because you tried something hard and maybe didn't succeed, but hey, you tried. That's what makes life worth living. And you don't meet those people without risking and experiencing failure. That's the thing. Your friends are there for you when you fail, not just when you succeed. So maybe that gives you a bit of a cushion, a bit of a permission structure to attempt social interaction and try to socialize, even if you're not super great at it. But I also like quirky people. And hey, I can't be alone in that regard. I would rather an authentic, quirky person than a slick, by the numbers, boring person. And if I'm like that, there has to be other people like that, right? I don't fault people just for having quirks. I'm a complete weirdo. See my discussion about normal on Monday, right? There are other people like me out there. And I'm going to put that out so that other people who feel the same way can find me, putting out a flare kind of thing. Yeah, people swear at me. They call me names. They think shitty things about me. They try to do a bunch of things online, but I keep going. And, I've forged some really great friendships along the way. I'm not Miss Popularity, but these are people I can rely on when it matters. And that's better than having hundreds and hundreds of fair weather friends, right? I'm an introvert, so I can do this. Introversion is my superpower. Might have to put that on a coffee mug. Anyway, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. It's Wednesday. Stay well.